Listen up, bowlers. Are you looking to gain the mental edge over your competition? Do you ever need that extra burst of all-natural energy during league play? Mindframe is the first all-natural supplement packed with vitamins and all-natural ingredients to keep bowlers at the top of their game. Supports muscle recovery and joint support for the day after that long tournament. You cannot continue to neglect your most important tool, your body, if you want to win. Experience the striking power of Mindframe. Visit s3direct.com. That's s3direct.com. Above180.com, taking your bowling game to the next level. Tim Berg and Joey Serrar are ready to hit the lanes, approaching the issues that you, the bowler, want to know. From the latest equipment reviews and coaching to drilling layouts. Now, from Washington, D.C. and the Bowlers Pro Shop in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, here are your hosts, Tim Berg and Joey Serrar.
Joining us on the Above180.com podcast is Eric Pierson. Eric, Tim Berg, and Joey Serrar here. And our first question, Eric, for you that I have is what exactly is your role with the USBC and what are some of the responsibilities that you have?
My official title is tournament manager of the USBC Women's Championships. So I follow and I'm in charge of all the operational components and the staff and the budgeting for basically the women's national tournament. Along with that, I have a couple other responsibilities. I manage the Queens event, the Senior Queens, and also just wrapped up managing the Masters tournament last month. There's been some staffing changes at USBC the last couple of years, and some of those responsibilities of the people who have left got divvied up, and some were thrown my way. And then along with that, for many years, I've worked at the Open Championships, and I've always been part of the lane maintenance procedures at the tournaments. So I'm still involved in setting up lane conditions at all of those major events, the Open, the Women's, Masters, Queens. I'm involved in all those events as well for the lane maintenance part.
Eric, I have a question for you, probably somewhat controversial, but we all know the stigma that the stadium holds in that, you know, at one time it was maybe a little more favorable to lefties due to lane topography, is my guess. That's been corrected years back with the new installation, correct?
Yeah, there's a couple of different ways of looking at that. I'll argue the fact about the fairness lefty thing with a decent argument. I'm not saying I'm right. But yeah, and in 2006 they put in new surface, and so everything was brand new, and I believe we're also trying to find a way to get that surface changed again within recent years because we are going back there fairly often. I'm not sure where that is in the works. But yeah, I think if we were to map out the lanes, I think they're way more level than people think they are. You know, the theory that one end of the building slants one way that's all just stories. There's no truth to that. The lanes they've always been within the USBC specs, to a point, 40 thousandths, whatever. It's not like they just let the lanes go there and nobody cares and they all got out of specifications. But over the course of time, I believe wear and tear definitely played a role in that the right side would break down and change faster, the left side wouldn't. And the other thing that I thought happened at the stadium was when the lefties were winning all those tournaments, they weren't winning the Open Championships. They weren't winning tournaments where you stayed on the same pair of lanes for 3 games. They were winning tournaments where the format made the bowlers move across the house and bowl a lot of games in a block, or those types of formats that the longer you went on, you're right, the more righties have to move and the less lefties have to move. Guess what? The lefties are probably going to outscore you. So I always use the argument that it's only a lefty house based on the format of the tournament. It wasn't a lefty house at the Open Championship, so I don't think a left-hander ever finished in the top 5 the first 4 or 5 times we bowled in that building. And now last year we had a couple lefties do very well had lots finished near the top and a couple winners actually. So
right now, Eric, when I was watching on the Extra Frame, the PBA Masters or USBC Masters tournament, I noticed some pairs, and I was listening to commentary quite a bit. they said there were some pairs in the building here that, no one would ever break 620 on. Other pairs, everyone would break 680 on. I mean, is that something we need to be either concerned with or aware of come the Open Championships?
I think that would be the one thing where when people say, going to the stadium where there's pairs that just seem to play quite a bit different or high scores aren't possible on those lanes, I think if that's the case, I wish we could somehow scientifically prove why. I guess obviously we're getting a little bit better and having some tools created in the industry for checking lane topography. So I think as time goes on here, we're going to get a little bit smarter and start to figure out some of those very detailed reasons why things play out the way they play out, knowing that it's not all just lane oil on the lane. There's a lot of other factors that go into, how somebody shoots that score. And I'll still argue and say number one reason is the choices the bowlers make have the biggest impact on how they're going to bowl. I want to say, last year my own team bowled on a pair of lanes that people kind of perceived as not very good. And, we did very well. We broke the lanes down well, and I think we finished in the top 50. I'm not saying that's great, but to say that you can't score on that pair, well, I don't know if I totally buy into that either, but I guess at a level like the Masters and the PBA, I guess when you got that quality of bowler out there bowling and they see really strange ball reaction on one pair of lanes compared to what they're used to on another pair, that I guess maybe they can assign numbers to the pairs. I guess I don't think I would ever do that, but to say you're never going to shoot over 630 on a pair of lanes, I think is stretching it a little bit.
Joining us on the Above180.com podcast is Eric Pierson. Eric helped set up the USBC Open Shot for Reno and is right now in Syracuse helping out with the women. He actually runs the tournament for the USBC women. Eric, one of the last things I want to ask you is you just touched on it briefly there in your answer where you talk about 10 bowlers carving up a lane spot, burning a hole in the pattern, so to speak. How does the USBC and how do you guys feel about that? And is there anything that can be done, or is that just the way it's always going to be?
I've heard a couple different, arguments on that we should move bowlers around or, not let them carve away at one pair or don't let companion teams bowl together. I guess it's, the tournament's set up for you to come out, put your shoes on and bowl 3 games on a pair of lanes. And, that's just the way we've always played the pattern. I'm not saying that's the way, we should always, it should always be. But I think, in my own personal opinion, if we were to start changing around the regulations on how to control that, we'd actually make the tournament more unfair by doing it any other way. If a team of bowlers wants to come out and manipulate the pattern and do what they think they need to do to score, that is how the game is played right now. If anybody doesn't believe that, then I think they should throw away all their 1,000-grit Abralon pads. That's the way we bowl right now. I'm not saying I agree with it or I like it, but the game's all about friction. So creating friction, however possible, is what we do. Now, obviously, there's times where we don't do it quite right, or you use the wrong ball and it's burning up in the wrong part of the lane at the wrong time. You don't carry. So again, bowler choice. Nobody said that bowler had to throw that ball. He chose to throw that ball. And if that ball gives him 580 as opposed to the guy next to him shooting 650, that doesn't have anything to do with the lane condition. It has to do with that bowler making choices. So I don't see us changing anything in the near future as far as that goes. I think it's part of the game right now. And I think if we were to change it, if we were to make teams move around or do other things, I think the perception would be that the tournament's not fair. Why does my team now have to follow so-and-so? We already do that for doubles and singles. Now I have to do it for team also. That probably wouldn't go over very well. So
Eric, has there been then discussion of that, of moving a pair to the right after your first game of team and crossing 6 lanes for your entire event, like you see a lot of times?
No, I've just heard different bowlers come up with different ideas. They just, one of the things seems like every year that the scores are getting higher and higher, which, they really aren't. But, certain scores are. The all-event scores obviously gotten higher. We had a record broken 2 years in a row. But, I just heard different guys kind of coming up with ideas to try to, is there a way to keep scores lower? Obviously the first idea is, well, let's just make the lanes harder. Well, if I make them harder on fresh, and now you carve away at your lanes properly, and the guys next to you don't, the squad that comes in after you, I want to bowl on your lanes. So now the perception is the tournament would be, again, even more unfair based on that the equity of scores would drastically change if we put too many stipulations or parameters, I believe, into the format of the tournament. So doesn't mean it's not being looked at, or people are coming up with ideas. Our staff at the tournament is constantly looking at the event, all of our events. What can we do different? What can we maybe change? Whether it's to increase entries or make the tournament seem to be fair, or whatever we can do to improve the events. We're constantly looking at it. But usually what happens is if it's the way we're doing it right now, chances are it's because we feel that's the best way right now.
All right, Eric, I got a follow-up question here, and I realize this isn't your decision, but I just want to feel your thoughts on this. Reno, Baton Rouge, Reno. What do you think about that setup of going back there 4 to 5 years?
Well, I mean, I'm definitely not in the decision-making process, but I'm definitely in the loop as far as why some of those decisions are made, and it definitely affects me. My working the women's tournament here, I'm going to be in Reno 3 years in a row here coming up next year, and what's happening is we're just kind of reaching a point in time where we are not being able to find host cities that want to have our events. Give us a wide open convention center for 5 or 6 months, and just take care of the necessary things that we need to put on the event. So on our end, we're having a little more trouble, finding the venues to go to, and knowing that we have to have these things planned out well in advance. Reno really stepped up and says, "Hey, I know you're having trouble, and if things don't work out, we'll be more than happy to help you out here." And that's what happened this year. We should be, originally I believe we were going to Wichita. And then that contract fell through, and all of a sudden we've got a open spot. And Reno said, "Well, hey, why don't you come back here 2 years in a row?" And I'm not saying we took the easy way out, but a decision needed to be made, and they made it. And, 2 years later, here we are going back again. Because our process is just getting harder. I mean, we know the bowlers like to go to different towns and see the country, and that's all fine. But for us right now at this point in time, some tough decisions had to be made on how to keep things going, and the people definitely above me made those decisions, and that's what we're doing. And we'll do the best we can to try to run a good event and have the people enjoy it, and hopefully they keep coming back to Reno. Reno does a lot for our tournament. Yeah, when you are in that decision-making process, and to put on an event of this magnitude, both open and the women's, I look at it and say right now, hey, thanks for Reno for coming. I don't want to say bailing us out, but helping us out here when we're definitely having some trouble finding other cities to go to. But then on the other end, we've got people that are shopping around the country, going to different cities and visiting venues, and constantly beating on the doors of trying to find what's that next city we're going to go to down the road. And the Orlando situation is still in the works. That's not a done deal, so they're still trying to find a way to get us a venue or some way to go for us to go to Orlando. So there's still a lot of things in the work, but at this point in time, we needed places to go, and Reno's the one that stepped up, and that's where we're going.
Well, Eric, on that note, we're going to let you go. I know you're a very busy man, and you've been very gracious with your time. Again, you're listening to Eric Pierson, the guy who helped set up the USBC pattern and is right now at the running the women's USBC tournament in Syracuse. And Eric, I'd love to have you back on the show again, maybe in, say, a month or 6 weeks. Kind of just give us your overall thoughts on the first 6 weeks of the tournament, how the scores are playing out, and if you guys are accomplishing. So can you promise to join us again? I know you're really pressed for time, but we'd love to have you back on the show again here in the near future.
Yeah, definitely. Maybe a good time would be during the week of the Queens, which is towards the end of April.
That'll be perfect. And you were listening to the Above180.com podcast. Tim Berg along with Joyce Serrar. Again, we are hosting check out Above180.com. Going to have a lot of stuff up there dealing with the USBC tournament. For all of us, for Tim Berg, for Joyce Serrar, for Eric Pierson, who was our guest today, good luck and good bowling.